Good afternoon, Namibia and the world, and welcome to another session here at the Government Information Center. We have missed you. It's been a while since we had so many holidays in between. We had Africa Day, we had Ascension Day, and on those days we unfortunately couldn't be in your company, but it's great to be back again. Today we're looking at a health topic, and that's the health topic that's been with us for a while. It keeps flaring up and then it dies away and then it comes back very much strongly. Hopefully this year it will not have the same effect as it did last year. And definitely we are talking about COVID-19. Normally in the show at this particular time, we usually have our regular COVID-19 update that we'll be giving to you as soon as we receive it. For now, we carry on. And the topic: if COVID-19 vaccines are effective and safe, why is there a high rate of COVID-19 vaccine hesitancy and reinfection? That is what we're looking at this afternoon, and we have two panelists in the studio that will be helping us to try and figure this out and dive through it. You are, of course, always welcome to add your voice to the conversation as we open up our lines a little later on during the show. Getting back to our panelists, we've got Ms. Lydia Kandume. She is a registered nurse and a midwife with the respiratory unit at the Ministry of Health and Social Services. Good afternoon, Ms. Kandume.
Afternoon, how are you?
Very good. It's great to have you here with us. And next to her on my far left, we've got Ms. Rosalina De Veer, and she's a technical officer with the Public Health Emergencies at the World Health Organization, WHO. Good afternoon, Ms. De Veer. How are you?
Good afternoon. I'm fine, Desiree. How are you?
Very good. Great to have you guys in studio, and hopefully you will help us answer some of the questions that not only the public has, but ourselves as well here at the center. And we start off with you, Ms. De Veer. We have people who are still questioning the effectiveness of the COVID-19 vaccines. Please lay out the efficacy of COVID-19 vaccines for us.
Thank you for the question. Yes, we are aware that there are still people out there that seems not to believe, although the evidence, I think, is much more clearer. If I look at about 2 years ago, when basically vaccination just commenced in some places, I think the data is out there, the signs are out there that shows the vaccines are working. So even in our own situation, if you look at the daily updates that are being shared, if you look at the people admitted currently in the hospital, if I take the update of yesterday, for example, out of the 137 people that were admitted, only 6 were vaccinated. If you look at people in the ICU, none of them are vaccinated. So, and just go back again to the beginning, right from the beginning when we did, talk about the vaccine, when we talked about the different vaccines that are there, we said from the beginning, it's not necessarily going to prevent you from getting infected. However, it will prevent from you developing serious complications, end up in hospital, or eventually end up in ICU. So in terms of the vaccine effectiveness, I think the data is out there. The data can prove that it is working. Yes, many people got infected also after the vaccine, not due to the vaccine, or you can say, but I have received the vaccine, however, I still contracted the disease. But from the beginning, we said the chances, most of the vaccines that are out there, that are WHO having emergency listing, it protects you from getting the disease around 50-60%. However, when it comes to preventing hospitalization and death, it goes to over 90%. And that's why we are seeing, even in our own setting, we are seeing the exact same evidence. So we have to look at the evidence in terms of what we are seeing and not keep on believing that the vaccine is not working. It's because of the vaccine also that many economies in the world have opened up. If it wasn't for the vaccine, then many of us would not have been able, to continue at least some form normalization. And perhaps my colleague can add in terms of what they are seeing in the hospital. Because really, what we are seeing, it has become a pandemic of the unvaccinated, actually, if you look at the information out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ms. Kandume, you have been at the forefront of COVID-19 patient care in the hospitals. Please share with us your observations.
With us, with being the frontline workers, we've observed a lot, honestly, in regards to patients being vaccinated and some of them not being vaccinated. Majority of our admissions in the respiratory unit, it alone, has been patients that are not actually vaccinated. And those patients are the patients that tend to be critically ill. However, we do also get cases of patients that are severe and also having critical diseases, and majority of them actually fall under the numbers of the patients that are unvaccinated. And we have had patients that recover fully. We've also experienced some deaths, and amongst the death cases that we've had, honestly, majority of them have been the unvaccinated cases.
Okay. Ms. De Vere, while vaccines are deemed highly effective and safe, why are there high records of reinfections and we are having incidences of fully vaccinated persons dying?
Let's look at it first of all, like if we, you know, there's quite a lot of factors that comes into play when you say I am fully vaccinated. Because fully vaccinated means a lot of things in terms of COVID vaccination. For example, did you receive the 2 doses? Then remember, towards the end of last year, the ministry also issued a guidance that you should take a booster. And again, that is based on the data that we have seen that immunity over time reduced. So you need an additional shot to up again the immune system or to boost again the immune system. So that is the one thing. So did you get that extra dose? And this is especially for your people that are already having underlying conditions. And then secondly, if you got the 2 doses, what is the interval between your time, let's say for example, was it 1 month after the second dose? Was it 7 days? Was it 10 days? Because the vaccine needs a couple of weeks to complete that process of the antibodies developing, you know? So you get the 1 shot, the process is starting. You get the second shot, the process is continuing, but it takes some time. I think studies have shown, even for example, the AstraZeneca vaccine that we are having, that the longer the interval between your dose 1 and dose 2, it's even giving better protection. Again, so the period. So is it somebody that is reinfected that already, maybe the person was vaccinated last year, so the immunity has already, you know, gone down. So there's a lot of factors that are coming into play that you say, okay, I got reinfected, yeah? So sometimes it could also be an issue that the body simply did not make the necessary antibodies. I'm coming from an immunization background. We have seen that for some reason sometimes, even if you do get those 2 doses, that for some reason, you know, the immune system is so complex. It's not something that is just easily understandable. So some individuals, for some reason, they just, you know, the body did not what we call seroconvert. And we have seen that among children vaccination. And that's why I'm saying I'm talking from a vaccination background. So these are all that you have to look at. It actually requires some collecting those data, go through it and see what is really the reason. Yeah. Then people getting the 2 doses and passing away, again, it comes to the same concept. How long after did they get the 2 doses? Did they get the additional dose? And here I'm talking specifically of our people at high risk, your people with your underlying health condition like hypertension, diabetes, heart conditions, all these. Did they get the second dose? I think if we look at the data from the ministry, some of the colleagues have already done some analysis on the data, and it is very clear that, people that are having comorbidities are the one that, just like in the previous, let me say, during the Delta wave, that we have seen that are more prone to succumb eventually due to COVID-19. So it still plays a major role, that whether you're having underlying conditions, and then of course age also. We all know as you are aging, you are becoming more susceptible to a lot of things, even to ordinary flu also. Mm-hmm. So it needs someone to just take the data and then do a study on it and publish. I know the ministry is currently busy with a study on vaccine effectiveness, and I'm sure the results will be out soon. And this is to look in our own context, so that we talk in the Namibian context. This is what we have seen among people that have received vaccination.
Okay. Ms. Kandume, since we started our show this afternoon, we're referring to vaccinated people, unvaccinated people, the effects on them, so on. Can you maybe just help our minds to understand what is the difference between persons who are vaccinated and those that are unvaccinated when they get infected with COVID-19?
When you're asking that question, I think I'm actually going to refer to in terms of the signs and symptoms of the COVID-19 generally.
Okay.
With what we've been observing and experiencing with COVID-19, vaccinated people tend to have mild to almost no symptoms at all when it comes to COVID-19. And when they do get sick, their symptoms and the illness is not as severe as those that are not actually vaccinated. Okay. As for unvaccinated people, those are the people that tend to require respiratory assistance, and those are the people that actually tend to even have be sick for a longer period of time, have a more severe reaction to the COVID-19 rather than the ones that are actually vaccinated.
Okay. I'll get back to that one a little later on. Ms. De Veer, in comparison to many other vaccines, the rules around the COVID-19 trial periods seem to have been relaxed, and in turn this has caused hesitancy in many people to get vaccinated because they believe that these vaccines are still experimental and have not completed initial trial research trial. What do you say to this?
Thank you, Desiree. I can just say that no shortcuts were taken. I think at one stage previously when we also had an engagement on a similar platform, one of my colleagues was explaining that, there are trials. Yes, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and then phase 4. This is now when it's ready for the vaccine to be used. And what happened in the case of COVID-19 is that these phases were run parallel. It was simultaneously happened. And then very important that this was not a new virus. Remember, we all talk about SARS-CoV, yeah? Mm-hmm. So not to use scientific language, let me say the virus was already known, what they call the genomic makeup of the virus. So the scientists didn't have to start from scratch mm-hmm. to develop the vaccine, yeah? Because this is linked to previous viruses that were there. And like I said, these trials, they did it parallel, as they were starting. And believe me, there was no shortage of volunteers, yeah, because you need human subjects to be part of the clinical trials. I recall some time ago, people were saying, you don't want to be a guinea pig, but we have to be, willing. And many people were willing without any issue to be part of subjects during the trial, because you have to test the vaccine on humans as well. Mm-hmm. So normally they start a small sample, with some rodents, and then they move on. They start a small trial on human beings. They increase the sample, and then the next one they increase it now to tens and thousands of people. Mm-hmm. And that's why there were simply no shortcuts taken. And then another important element is also there was no shortage of funds. Remember, many governments were affected by this, the developed and the developing world. And the developed world has really, made a lot of resources available. And your big pharmaceutical giants, remember, they are well established, the Pfizer, the GSK, AstraZeneca. It's not, strange names to us, these pharmaceutical companies. So the moment that data was published on what the virus looked like, they started with the research, yeah? Mm-hmm. So they started to test. So there were no shortcuts taken. All the trials phases were completed. And even the phase 4 trials, there were many thousands and thousands of people involved in this. And I think at this stage, if we still think the vaccine is experimental, what about the millions and millions of people by now that have been vaccinated? That should certainly count for something if we look at real life evidence. Mm-hmm. Many of us were vaccinated. We are still here. Nothing funny has happened. And I can assure you that is the general, if you talk to somebody that was vaccinated, that they will tell you, yes, maybe there were minor side effects, etc., but that's with vaccines. So no shortcuts were taken. So I think if you don't believe the science that are out there to prove that indeed the vaccine is working, yes, it was very quick, but all the steps were followed. And even, I think, late last year, the FDA, which is the American Food and Drug Administration, even what you call complete regulatory approval to Pfizer vaccine. Yeah? So that means it's finished. It's not just the provisional type of approval that was there. Mm-hmm. So the vaccines are there. The people and independent people went through the data, and only after that, the vaccines were cleared.
Okay. Before I get back to that one, I'd like to call on our audience and say you're welcome to join into the conversation. You can call us in. Our call line here is 061, that's the area code for the Commerce region. The number is 400397. 400397, that's the number here in studio. We are live streaming from our social media platforms, and via those platforms, you can also add your comments or place your comments or your questions if you have any. On Facebook, you can find us at the Ministry of Information and Communication Technology, Republic of Namibia. That's on Facebook, Ministry of Information and Communication Technology, Republic of Namibia. We are also live streaming on our YouTube platform, and that is MICT Namibia. That's the handle that we're using there, MICT Namibia. That is when you want to add your voice, you can use all these platforms that are available to you. Ms. De Vere, I'd like to actually ask, you spoke about phases, and these phases ran parallel. Am I wrong in my understanding that for a person or a trial or a research or a test to go to phase 2, it is based on the outcomes of phase 1? Now, how do you have 1, 2, 3 phases running parallel if you do not have the results of phase 1 yet? You don't have the complete results of phase 1, yet you are running phase 2. How does that occur? And is it really advisable?
Thank you, Desiree. In an emergent situation, you sometimes there has to be exceptions, and you are right. But remember when I said when they started, it was not from scratch. Mm-hmm. Like I said, because the genomic sequencing the virus was already known. Yeah. So when they started testing it, remember, this is basically just to test now to see if whatever they are going to come up with, the vaccine, does it in fact help? And that's how they could now take a small sample and simultaneously start already with a small sample, because it was not, to see what I have, is it indeed for COVID-19 or not? Like I said, the sequencing was already known. Yeah. So the baseline was already there, or the foundation was already there, because previously we had H1N1 vaccine. Mm-hmm. There were the Middle East acute respiratory syndrome. All these were linked two, or they are all, let me say, from the same family of viruses. So that's why it was possible, you know, on a small scale when you are starting this. And then, of course, once you go to phase 2, then it's not an issue, you know, because you are taking a few subjects, you know, and continue testing, and while you continue also with a larger sample. But I can tell you, even right now, they are still busy making sure, they are still collecting data. We call that phase 5. Phase 5 is now where you are now studying the vaccine effectiveness under normal real life conditions. Because when we talk about vaccine efficacy, it's what you are finding in the laboratory, in a controlled environment. But the effectiveness of the vaccine, even till now, it is still being studied, you know, so that you say in a certain population, this is how effective the vaccine is.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Davia. We have a caller on the line, and he's calling us from Gibeon. Good afternoon, Dawson. How are you?
Thank you. How are you?
We are well. I hope that your day is going well.
Yes.
How would you like to add
I
your
have
call?
3 issues.
Yes.
I will do it as quick as possible.
Okay.
The first one, I don't see that those vaccines are effective, as those are already vaccinated are becoming sick again. The other one is we are living with people amongst us, family members, who are suffering because of the vaccines. Our people, our family members are sick because of that vaccines. But now they want us to bring scientific evidence that it's because of the vaccines. But we know our people. So that's the other one. And the other one is, I don't see the need of a vaccine while the people in our rural areas who are vulnerable people who suffer the most with non-housing, non-land, who have to dig boreholes themselves and get water which is dirty from it, while we are going keep on buying 300 million of vaccines, which is not effective anyway.
Okay.
We are struggling with it. We are struggling with it. We see those people are walking in the streets, the dirty people, they never get sick. Well, why? What is the problem there? Only people that are look after themselves, eating well, and so on, living well, those are the people who get sick, and we lost those people.
Yeah.
But those people who are struggling the most, we have other needs. We have all the vitamins in the world in Namibia. We have the moringa. Moringa carries all the vitamins you needed. So why are we not advising our people to make use of the moringa seed and use the moringa seed? I myself, personal Mr. Dawson here, I'm using the moringa seed since day one, and I'm still using it with no problems at all. I never even get a cough.
Yeah, yeah. No, thank you, Mr. Dawson.
Thank you
We
very
are
much.
definitely going to take it up
Okay.
with the discussion. Thank you very much. Mr. Dawson has brought on points here that were going to be part of my next follow-up questions. He brought out the should we say an opinion, a perspective that the nation is having, that if we're having so many reinfections anyway, then what's the point of us actually going as far as being vaccinated? The second point that he brought on was a question. There was a point that I was actually going to be posing to both of you, that there has been signs and indications within our people that have been vaccinated that are now struggling with adverse reactions to the vaccines. Some have developed enlarged heart ventricles. Some have started having issues with their taste and their sense of smell. With some, it has become, should I call it halved or semi-affected? With others, it has completely gone. You have people who are now developing blood, should we call it high blood pressure issues that might be connected to the effect on the pumping of their hearts. Some have developed is it thrombosis? where you have an effect on the swelling of your legs and so on. These are some of the, the words that are coming through from the nation. And my question was then going to be, how or what is in place for us as Namibians in our country to have these people report these cases? Do we have any statistics that are officially reported to this regard? If yes, what do these statistics show? And also, Mr. Dawson brought on another point, which is also one of those points that we also came across, where now these patients are being asked to bring scientific evidence. Now, if I'm sitting in Gibeon and I know my body and I am realizing that something is wrong with myself, where do I get scientific evidence? How do I then prove that this is, as an effect of the vaccine? What provision has the Ministry of Health or WHO put in place to assist people who are struggling or victims of the vaccine, if I can put it that way, because that's how it comes out now?
Okay, that's many questions in one.
Yes.
So perhaps just from the caller's perspective, just to answer that, we do have a committee called National Adverse Events Following Immunization Committee, which is led or which comprise of independent people that in cases like this, you have to report it. You have to report it. We cannot just say the vaccine it's because of the vaccine that this is happening to me or this has happened to another person. We have to report it. Yeah. So, like I said, there's a committee. Every single region in the country or district, they are aware of the procedures. So in the case of Gibeon, they can talk, they should report it to Gibeon, to the clinic, so that it can be investigated from a rental district to collect the data, because it's very important for us to ensure that these cases are investigated so that we can also give feedback to say, but indeed, is this because of the vaccine or is it not because of the vaccine? It's very easy to say that I got vaccinated yesterday, 7 days down the line, I developed something, it's because of the vaccine. We have to accept that it can also be coincidental. It could have been that something was already in my body busy. And now I got the vaccine, so it's human nature that I now want to link the two, that vaccination and why do I now develop, whatever complications. Because the data on safety is out there. Even in the country, we are busy collecting data on every possible side effect that was experienced. But if they don't report it, we will not know about it. So the first step really is to report. We take the files, we take everything, all the history, etc., and it can be investigated properly. It's a pity that it's probably something that has happened quite some time ago. So because the longer you wait, the more time passes and the more it can become challenging now to really get to the bottom of this and do the investigation properly. But
Okay.
Really it's important that it should be reported.
Okay. Mr. Veer, you're speaking about the fact that there is an adverse events committee.
Yes.
With all honesty, I don't think much education has been put out or placed out there for individuals to know that this committee exists, and nor have really, I speak under correction, there been evidence of, civic education being put effort into to teach our people the channels and offices that they're supposed to approach to report these effects when they feel them or when they come across them. And thus, I will then also come to Ms. Kandume then. Are there any plans to then develop some form of campaigns to educate our nation that there are offices that we can approach, there are procedures that we need to follow to report these cases, and do we have a guarantee that these particular persons will not be ostracized or stigmatized by virtue of them reporting what they feel is an effect or an adverse reaction to the vaccine?
Nowadays in regards to that, there's so many concepts when it comes to adverse reactions to the vaccines.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody thinks that like Mr. Via has mentioned before, there could be something, there was already something that was meant to happen or was supposed to happen, but now they blame the vaccine. In all honesty, with every vaccine that has been given to all patients, what is this? What is this? What am I trying to say? The side effects.
Yes.
Yes, the side effects for the vaccine are always communicated to the patients before they get the vaccine. And they are informed on if you develop this kind of signs or symptoms, do go see health practitioner or go to the nearest clinic to report this. However, majority of the patients honestly don't even report those cases until then they actually start becoming sick. But there are minor signs and symptoms there, but because it's not as severe as they think it was going to be, they only report it after something else happens, then they blame the vaccine.
But if we're to be very honest, in a lot of people's experiences when they're approaching these vaccine stations, the side effects that you're told about is exhaustion, probable dizziness for a few hours or a few days, fever. I remember there was also one that spoke to temporary weakness in your limbs as the vaccine takes on in your body. But when you talk about, or when you listen to some of the adverse reactions that we are now hearing, they are far from these symptoms or side effects that are being given to the patients when they are being administered the vaccine. Do we then say that there was a gap in the education, in the educating of the individuals when they are going for the vaccination?
But I'm coming back to my point made earlier, and which I emphasize again.
Mm-hmm.
It's very easy to blame the vaccine, in the absence of anything else, because you will not know that you already had high blood pressure, or whatever condition you want to now say it's because really, if you look at the data out there is very few incidences of what we call a serious adverse event.
Mm-hmm.
Very few cases.
Yeah.
So vaccines are safe. Remember, in these clinical trials, it's being tested on thousands and thousands and thousands of people.
Yeah.
And it takes a long time before you now say, okay, now the safety of the safety profile of the vaccine is good enough. We can now roll it out. So it is very important that you have to report. We cannot just make the assumption it's because of the vaccine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's no difference between the vaccines we are currently having and the vaccines that were there all along in the world. We are getting flu vaccination every year. I know not everybody is normally aware of flu vaccination, but every winter season, if you walk in town, you will see the pharmacy advertising flu vaccine available, because it just lasts a few months and you do it over and over and over.
Okay.
So I really would like to urge the community, the callers, you have to report so that the case can be investigated, so that even for yourself, you can be at ease. Was this because of the vaccine, or was it not the vaccine?
Okay.
It's very easy to blame the vaccine because it so happened that you received the vaccine in the preceding days, and that's why it's the most likely explanation that you would like to think as a person.
Okay.
So I would not go and say this is because of the vaccination. Really.
Before you come in, Ms. Kandumi, we've got House Up on the line calling from Windhoek. How are you? Caller, hello?
Yes, hello, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon. How are you, sir? Welcome to our show.
No problem, no complaint. Actually, I just wanted to contribute on the topic there.
Yes.
Like, honestly, from my point, honestly, I took the vaccination some time ago, and I did even took the booster, and I never experienced any side effects. And I can even say that from my house, for example, most of us took the injections, the COVID-19 vaccinations. But honestly, we never ever could hear of someone from the house complaining or having that side effects.
Yeah.
Like I took the AstraZeneca, my wife took the AstraZeneca, my mom took the Sinopharm. My younger brother even took the Sinopharm. Both of us, we took the vaccinations and we even did our boosters.
Yeah.
But ever since, none of us even have complained. It's all like this. Let me just put the press and end it.
Okay.
That's all I want to say.
Okay. No, thank you very much, Hausa, for your contribution. It's highly welcomed.
Okay.
It's good to have cases from both sides of the line there, and Hausa really just reiterating the fact that himself and his household, they all took vaccines and none of them had side effects. So it's not a guarantee that everybody is going to have side effects from taking vaccines. As Mr. Veer is saying, these are very minimal cases that we have where you have reports of people actually having some form of reaction or adverse reactions or events because of vaccines. There is one comment that Dawson from Gibeon stated, and that is one that many people also were questioning, that as a country we do, and as a continent in fact, we do have elements within our natural components that are highly effective as medicinal ingredients, yet these are not being promoted. Why is this the case? Ms. Kandume, maybe you want to take that one?
Oh, no.
Or Mr. Veer?
No, that's for Mr. Veer.
It is, that is for the ministry, of course, to really come out and say, you can also not just recommend something unless you put it through the same rigorous testing. Because what if the very same thing happened, that I recommend you to take that, and then after some days something happened, and then it's because of the product, because maybe there are some unknown allergies due to this. So it's very tricky.
Yeah.
So natural, I'm also somebody, I am very much for natural medicine. I think that what we can do to up and boost our own immune system, of course, it's very good. However, you cannot just recommend something blanketly and say start using this, because the science are not there to back you up. You can talk from your own perspective, and you can say in my house and etc. But when it comes to making a generalized recommendation, it now becomes really tricky, because you don't have data.
Okay.
You cannot say out of these 10,000 people that I've given, indeed, it up their immune system.
Okay. We've got Abdul, pardon me, we've got Abdul on the line from Vid. Good afternoon, Abdul, how are you?
Good afternoon, my darling. How are you doing today?
No, we are blessed. How are you?
Good afternoon to your listener. Madam, good afternoon, and good afternoon to your listeners, ladies and gentlemen, my dear brothers and sisters.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm listening to your representatives and to the caller who also questioning Madam.
Yes.
Madam, you answer a question, and you say that people must not blame the vaccine. My dear mother or comrade, friend, leaders, and citizens, we are not blaming the vaccine. Because why, madam, and to your organizations, WHO, and the World Disease Center, and all the organizations, all governments, and all private institutions that are coordinated with this thing I'm going to say.
Yeah.
That is the problem. One, the citizens are not blaming. No country in the world is blaming as a citizen over the vaccine, because vaccine does not talk. The vaccine does not talk. The vaccine does not manufacture itself. It is the people. When I mean people, WHO is involved. The disease center is involved. The government representatives, they are involved. The private sector, businessmen, all these politicians, and all people who have been there to make this vaccine. It is a disease was created by people, and the vaccine that is made in, it is what you call chemical So the chemical, it is something that destroys the life of the people. This is why we are saying that when you bring that people are blaming, a thing does not talk. You, madam, you are talking. Me, I'm talking, who I'm calling in. And my people are affected. You have a daughter, you have a son. I may have a son in the future, but my generations are being destroyed because of my leaders, my people, politicians, WHO, United Nations, all these people are from this disease. They are targeting the life of the people. And they are messing the life of the people because why? They want to use this product so that they can confuse the world to say, you take it, you will succeed. But how many people in the question, madam, how many people in the world that die when they take this vaccine? And still we do not see the consequences in the disease, in the vaccine. That's why my answer is that we are not blaming the vaccine that we do not want to take the vaccine, but the consequences, the damage and the cost of the vaccine, the chemical that they use, that is why we are saying that vaccine will not blame it, we blame the organization, we blame the leaders, we blame those who make this vaccine to destroy the life of the human being. That is what we are saying. That my answer is that let us not blame the vaccine, but let us rather blame the organization, the people that contributed in this dynamic pandemic and COVID-19. So
thank you very much, Abdul, for your contribution. Thank you very much, Abdul.
Okay, blessed day.
Same to you, Abdul. Thank you for those comments and contributions there from our viewers. We come back to Ms. Kandume, who was going to add on to something that Ms. Davia stated now.
In regards to traditional medicine use or home medicine use that the majority of the community is actually using. It's just like the same way, not every medication, not every antibiotic is suitable for everyone. This kind of medication may work for this person and this one may not work for that one. So you can't generally just go out there and say, no, this person has been using moringa, let's just give moringa to everybody else. Moringa is not going to react the same way to the other person as much as it's working for this person.
Now I'm strongly in agreement with what you're stating with the fact that one thing that works for me might not work for you. But I'm taken back to some of, with our communication during our session today, where we look at the fact that, for example, the disease in itself, it's not something that started in 2020 or 2019. It is, if I understood correctly, traces of it have been there. Because if I understood you correctly, we've had, we refer to SARS. What was the scientific name that you stated there? SARS?
Severe acute respiratory syndrome.
Yes, as in, what I'm trying to get in is, when we are talking about the vaccines being developed, you know, in one of your responses earlier on, you stated that it's not something that was started from scratch, due to the fact that we've had some of these similar, should I say, viruses?
Yes, similar viruses,
that were in existence, from which we could kind of, have the terminology is what's killing me here.
The sequencing.
Yes, the geosequences, the existing already from which we could build. Before I continue with my question here, we've got a call on the line. Virimuye is calling us. Good afternoon, how are you?
Hello?
Good afternoon, how are you, Virimuye?
No, I'm doing fine.
Yes.
I think that the volume is a little bit low from your side. Yes.
Yes, Virimuye, how would you like to add to the conversation?
Sorry?
How would you like to add to the conversation this afternoon?
Yes. No, I would love to find out about the exactly what is the government doing to make sure that they will not continue to lose money through procuring of course, items of importance, but then they don't do, I think, thorough feasibility to make sure, are these consumable or is just wasting taxpayers' money, especially on the issues of the vaccine that we're discussing?
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. I shall pose that question for you. That is Virimuye's question. We will come to that shortly. But what I'm trying to say here, seeing that we did not have to start from scratch due to the existing geosequencing that we could build on, When it comes to natural herbs and so on, they are also not herbs that were only discovered last year or the year before last year when COVID hit the country. The examples of your moringa, the examples of your devil's claw, and a few other herbs that are being dug by our natives in our soils that have been proven to be assisting. We might not say they would assist in curing the virus, but they could help to contain the symptoms and so on. Why is it, or do we have maybe, let me rather speak it this way, do we have researchers within our country or research facilities that we as a country are attached to in other countries that are a bit more advanced with their laboratories and so on, where we are sending these herbs for testing? Do we have such cases so that in the future, if not for COVID, but in the future, if a similar issue does arise, we can then be in a position to advise, not necessarily force, but advise people that you can use the moringa to control symptoms, or you can use the devil's claw to do A, B, C, D. Do we have such situations taking place?
From my side, I'm not aware currently of anything.
Yeah.
Neither if there's any research currently happening where you literally then take these plants and or herbs and study them for the different components, especially to see what are they really made of, you know. So I'm not aware of that. So probably I don't know.
Skandume?
No.
From your, okay. Maybe that is a test we can put to our scientists in the country. We've got a few graduates that recently graduated, and maybe they can take on that task as the challenge that they can, usher in and have breakthroughs for the country. Put us on the map on that perspective. Vilimuye looked at cost, and he was specifically looking at the cost of procuring COVID-19 vaccines in such bulk numbers while they end up being confiscated or unused. And unfortunately, they've got expiry dates. There's nothing we can do about expiry dates, but there is something that we can do with regards to our procurement quantities and processes. What can we maybe say to that from your respective institutions?
In regards to the expenditure on such?
Are there plans to maybe reduce quantities to try and minimize on the amount of vaccines that need to be destroyed at the end of the day? I mean, by now we've been running our vaccination campaign for a while. We should be able to know approximately the trends of vaccination that would or should help guide our procurement quantity.
I'm not sure about that, honestly.
Yeah, from that perspective, I can talk because I am from the program as well.
Yeah,
it's indeed what we are doing. We are looking at the daily consumption. We are looking at the weekly consumption, and we do have a logistician that's working with the ministry so that we make proper forecasts.
yeah.
I have to say that a lot of the stock we are currently having is also vaccines that were donated. I'm sure you have seen even on the, normally it's announced, so it's what's coming through the bilateral donations, especially the Pfizer vaccine coming from the US. And then there were also some other countries also that donated some vaccines. But indeed, the ministry spent a lot of money on the procurement. But that's exactly what we are doing. So at the moment, there is not any procurement taking place. I think we are still optimistic that the vaccine uptake will increase because we have immunized roughly 480,000 people the first dose. The second dose is slightly less. So that should also count for something like out of those 480 first dose and over 400 second dose, how many people develop severe reactions or complications, yeah? But I think the ministry was also really trying to do the best to ensure. Remember in the beginning there was really like there was the vaccine demand was so high. We could not even secure enough vaccines to start with in the beginning.
Okay.
So the ministry wanted to ensure that we have enough stock.
Okay.
So luckily, some of the stock we are having is only expiring 2023. So we are still hopeful that the uptake can increase so that we meet the demand that, that is there.
Yeah. Okay. It's good news to know that our government, the ministry with their, did you say statistician?
Logistician.
Logistician.
Yes.
Yo, I'm learning new terms on this show.
Yeah.
Are doing something to try and ensure that some of these, losses do not continue to occur. As we start rounding off our program for this afternoon, we've got Richard Kambanda, who is saying, how long do anti-COVID vaccines protect, and who needs a booster and why? Definitely brings us to our next question that I also had, Mr. Richard Kambanda. Thank you very much for your contribution. Ms. De Veer and Ms. Kandume, I think that one, we will mix it up. I'll mix that question up with the questions that we had. We have members of the public that have comorbidities, and previously these people were not eligible for COVID-19 vaccines. Have there been any new developments to that regard? In short, just quickly, are there new developments? Which ones are better? Have the science advanced that allows them to, what are the conditions around that?
Perhaps there was just in the beginning a bit of a miscommunication when the campaign was rolled out, because your people with comorbidities are your high priority that should be vaccinated.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the exact opposite.
Okay.
They are 100% eligible for the vaccine unless they are advised by their doctor for some reason not to take the vaccine.
Okay.
These are the people that really needs to make sure that they are vaccinated, because we have seen it that it is those people, those group of people with comorbidities that has absolutely the highest death rate among the people that passed away.
Okay.
Booster shot, definitely. We have seen that after around 6 to 8 months, immunity starts to wane. So it's getting less, it's going down. So that's why we are recommending to take at least a booster shot, because it has shown that you can increase the immunity again. So typically the vaccines have different intervals, so check with your healthcare provider to say exactly, but normally for some of the vaccine like Johnson & Johnson, you can take after 2 months your booster dose, because remember it's just one dose.
Yeah.
Then also, your people with your comorbidities, they actually, and your HIV people that have already an immune system that is a bit compromised.
Yeah.
They, in fact, need what we call an additional dose. So when you count for them, you count dose 1, dose 2, dose 3. Then only they are fully protected.
Oh.
Then the 4th one is now their booster dose. Yeah.
Okay.
And again, this is what the science have shown. They have shown that this group of people do not seroconvert, or that process of developing antibodies is not going so well, because the immune system is already having issues.
Okay.
That's when it was published that they need to have an additional dose, as opposed to the next person who don't have any underlying conditions. So that's fine. You are okay with your 2 doses. However, age group, I think 50 and above, we recommend the booster also.
Okay, okay. No, thank you for that. As I was saying a little earlier on, we are coming to the end of our show, and thus our last question goes to Ms. Kandume. Maybe you can assist us here. Can somebody get vaccinated while they're infected with COVID-19?
Sorry?
Can somebody who is infected with COVID-19 be vaccinated?
With the information and the guidelines that were released, is that after a person receives after a person has tested positive for COVID-19, there is a certain period of time that they, like a lapsing period that they actually need to cover before they actually get another.
Okay. So basically, while you're infected and you've tested positive and you're going through the recovery period, you are not allowed to get vaccinated.
No.
Okay. With that said, we have come to the end of our show this afternoon. We were looking at the hesitancy issue that we are finding in the communities with regards to vaccination. We are also trying to tackle the issue of the efficacy of the vaccines. We've had Ms. De Veer from WHO explaining to us how that is working and the different intervals that we find ourselves and the development of these vaccines. I think if the message is right here, is the fact that the vaccines are assisting to keep people alive, and the symptoms thereof are lessened if one is vaccinated. Thank you very much, Ms. Rosalina De Veer, and she's from WHO. She's the technical officer with the public health emergencies with WHO here in Namibia. Thank you as well to Ms. Lydia Kandume. She is a registered nurse as well as a midwife with the respiratory unit with the Ministry of Health and Social Services. It was definitely good to have you in the studio. From myself, Shianua Desire Kahiha, as well as my production crew, we say thank you for watching our session, for your contribution and comments and questions. Till Wednesday. Bye-bye.